This week, we talk about Sean Payton's comments about Nathaniel Hackett and his coaching ability. We talk Jonathan Taylor versus Jim Irsay. Who's going to come out on top of this little battle going on? And of course, we'll talk about whatever else comes up because we are the West Coast Offensive, your sports podcast with a West Coast bias. All right, welcome back in to the West Coast Offensive, your sports podcast with a West Coast bias. I am your host, Kyle Dewhurst, joined by our forever guest, Drew Ager. How you doing this morning, Drew?
You know, doing pretty well. It's a nice August summer day here, and I'm ready to talk about some sports, Kyle.
Yeah, well, let's jump right into it because we got our favorite little type of story, some drama, right? Some people talking shit about each other. But we're going to talk about our first story. Sean Payton made some bold comments against Nathaniel Hackett's coaching ability and the job he did last year in Denver as their head coach. He is now with the Jets as the offensive coordinator. So I'm going to read a couple of the quotes from an article over on The Athletic by Larry Holder. I'm going to read some bullet points here. So Payton, who's in his first year with the Broncos, said last year's team got embarrassed from top to bottom, throwing blame at management and former Broncos coach and current Jets offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett. Quoted here, "Everything I heard about last season, we're doing the opposite," Payton said. The coach also said, "It might have been one of the worst coaching jobs in the history of the NFL. That's how bad it was." Now, within the criticism of last year's 5-12 Broncos, Payton pointed out this year's Jets as potentially running into the same issues. Payton scaled back outside criticism of quarterback Russell Wilson, pointing to the parents enabling Wilson and poor coaching around him. Jets coach Robert Saleh didn't want to acknowledge the comments, and he said, "He's been in the league a while. He can say whatever the hell he wants." Week 5, Denver and New York play each other, so we got a game now circled on the docket there. Drew, what is your initial reactions off this? We have a Hall of Famer coach right there, right? Sean Payton, he at least is in the conversation, making these comments about another coach in the NFL, saying the worst job in the history of the NFL, saying that he was the reason Wilson was bad, comparing him to the parents enabling him like a child who can't control themselves or something. Drew, what are your reactions?
Yeah, so initially, I was actually sort of surprised that Payton made these comments just because if things don't go well this year, he did not set himself up for a bunch of success, right? Like he really needs to make the Broncos competitive this year really fast. And if that doesn't happen, it's not going to, these comments are not going to bode very well for him going forward. I think it's interesting, the Russell Wilson comments, especially because I put so much more of that blame on Russell Wilson. Not saying that Nathaniel Hackett was a good coach. He was not prepared. They had clock management issues. They had locker room issues. Russ, well, okay. There were issues top to bottom in that entire franchise last year. That being said, Russ also did not do himself any favors. I think he tried to make himself a pocket passer. I think that he tried to make himself into something that he just isn't. He had his own office in the locker room, which is kind of an unheard of thing. I don't even think Brady does that. And so the fact that he, elevated himself to this, status and then played like absolute dog shit. Like there's a lot more there than I think just Nathaniel Hackett. And my biggest thing now isn't just going to be the coaching, but is Russell Wilson going to buy into what you're saying? Because I still think Russell Wilson is a talented quarterback. I still think that he has potential to get to somewhat back to where he was in this league. But I think a lot of his game was predicated on athleticism and being mobile and being elusive. And if he's not willing to do that, I question how good he is going to be able to be. I do expect the Broncos to be better this year. I expect them to be more competitive this year. But ultimately, I put as much on Russell Wilson as I do on Nathaniel Hackett. And it's kind of interesting, too, just looking like even with the case like Jacksonville, as bad as Nathaniel Hackett was, it was probably better than Urban Meyer, right? A couple of years back. So, like, is it the worst job in a history? If the Broncos make the playoffs this year, I would be much more on Sean Payton's side of this comment, then I am willing to make that statement right now.
Man, I forgot about Urban Meyer. That's how fast he crashed and burned. Like, how do you make that comment about the worst coach? Like, that was the worst coaching job. He came in and totally tanked. Like, it was awful. It was just like, oh, that guy was not the caliber of an NFL quarterback. Not quarterback, coach. So yeah, that's really funny. But I want to read some more comments specifically about Russell Wilson here, because again, Payton defended Russell Wilson and didn't really put the blame on him, put it all on the last coaching staff there, saying there's so much dirt around talking about Russell Wilson's performance. There's 20 dirty hands for what was allowed, tolerated in the freaking training rooms, the meeting rooms, the offense. I don't know, Hackett. A lot of people had dirt on their hands. It wasn't just Russell. He didn't just flip. He still has it. The BS that he hit a wall. Shoot, they couldn't get a play in. They were 29th in the league in pre-snap penalties. How is it? This wasn't Wilson's fault. That was the parents who allowed it. Again, comparing the coaches are the problem there. Now, is he saying though that the parents are enabling, so they're letting Russell have those like bad practices, those habits that aren't good, trying to do whatever he's doing, right? Is he saying that the coaches were letting him do that? So he's still doing it though. That is Russell Wilson's instinct, right? So I get the saying that, well, the coaching was the issue there. You need someone to coach the player so he can perform well, and that was the issue there. You let him do whatever he wanted. You need to coach him and contain him. That just tells me this guy, I don't know, that it seems like he's not good. So you let the court, he did what he wanted to do, and that's what we got last season. From the moment he went to Denver, I did not think he was going to be good. I think Seattle made the right choice in getting rid of him when they did with that trade. They won the trade. They're probably going to be a playoff team this year. We'll see how big of a step Geno takes either way, but they're going to be competitive at least. I don't think the Broncos will be. And these comments right there, I mean, if I'm a player, I feel weird about that. You have your coach calling out other coaches, and if you're on that team, I mean, sure, you know what? Maybe the players on the team also agree. Maybe they are all talking about it in the locker room, saying that Nathaniel Hackett was a hack job there. But you don't know that, and you shouldn't make those comments public. And if you're going to protect Wilson, I don't see it. I saw a couple, reports and stuff saying like Sean Payton might be protecting himself with these comments, saying it was last year's job, and then if it crashes and burns, like, well, it's just what it was. It's like it's going to take some time. It's like it just was weird.
I saw people saying, I forgot who, I think it was actually Aaron Rodgers when he was defending Hackett, saying this is just to protect Sean Payton. That makes zero sense to me. That if Sean Payton is saying any reasonable head coach could have taken this team into the playoffs, or at least been competitive, like he's raising the standards and the expectations for himself. He is in no way protecting himself, and I don't know how any rational person could see it that way. Like it's just a logical fallacy there, right? But I do think Sean Payton more than anything. I mean, first of all, we should say that he did apologize, right? And he was like, "Sorry, I still had my Fox hat on," which I do think is a hard thing to do when you go to TV media where you are constantly critiquing coaches and players and then becoming one of those very same coaches, right? So like I have a little bit of forgiveness there, but I think more than anything, he's just trying to build up Russell Wilson's confidence. Now, I think you have made the point before that Russell Wilson is not a guy that needs any more confidence when you're doing high knees on planes and let's ride and all this other stuff. But I think he's trying to build him back up. I think he's trying to get them all on the same page. And I think it's trying to be a reset. Russ, in my opinion, bought off way more than he could chew last year, even just trying to be a part of the offensive discussions. He was missing open players. This wasn't just like he had like a small drop off or what, like he was bad last year. He was very bad. And so there has to be more than schemes and players. I'm very interested to see what the Broncos do. I think that they are going to be an intriguing team to watch because of this, but I have no idea. If you gave me the plus or minus of 8 wins, like I don't know. Like I could see it going either way. I don't think that they're going to win 15 games, but if you told me in the AFC West that they won 9 or 10 games, I would be a little surprised, but I wouldn't be unbelievably shocked, right? Because if Sean Payton is a great coach, I thought it was interesting. Aaron Rodgers going back to the other way, defending him with the Will Smith one, our phrase, keep my coach's name out your mouth. But I think he's just doing the same thing, right? Because there's no way that you could actually defend what Nathaniel Hackett did last year. Aaron Rodgers is protecting his guy, his drinking buddy. I'm not even sure if Nathaniel Hackett deserves to be an offensive coordinator, right? He's there because of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, and we'll definitely, we'll see about that. And then, some of Hackett's comments after all this, he did talk, saying there's a code, there's a way things done. It sucks, And as someone who's like, you saw them crash and burn. He crashed and burned. Obviously, it didn't go well. And then to have a Hall of Fame coach come out and say that stuff like that sucks. So at the end of the day, I still think, can't make those comments, but I mean, it wasn't the extent of worse
for Nathaniel Hackett, who is still getting paid by the Denver Broncos, even though he's no longer the head coach there, right? Like it's if that wasn't like an abject disaster, I would have more sorrow for Nathaniel Hackett right now. And maybe if Urban Meyer didn't happen the year before, I would view this, even more harshly. But it's just, it was not a good performance. Like, they were clearly unprepared over and over and over again. And although when you look back, when I saw that, I think they won 5 games last year, I was surprised by that. I was like, really? Because I thought that they won 2. So maybe I'm being a little bit, harsh too. Yeah. Not that 5 games in the 17 game schedule is like impressive, but even in my head, that was twice as many games as like I would have said that they won, right?
Yes, so that means they're not as awful, I guess. But yeah, I think going with looking at next season now, I do think I agree with you. They could be good, but they're similar to the Raiders, where it's all on paper right now. To me, we just have to see it. So I think, unfortunately, I think it's third and fourth place in that division is between Raiders and Denver right now on paper. 1 and 2 is Chiefs and Chargers, but it really just depends if the things work out on paper. I think the Raiders are a very sneaky team depending on Garoppolo's play. That offense is stacked and the defense has got key parts in there, right? It doesn't matter though. We've had a good team the last last decade every now and then, and it still shits the bed. So, it's all on paper. We'll see what it is. So that this division is very interesting.
The other thing you had was Sean Payton saying that the Jets were playing for the offseason, right? That they weren't concerned about the regular season as much, but that they were trying to win the offseason. And I do think it is fascinating to me that they are going to play each other in week 5, that they could potentially be battling for a wild card spot down the line. But just this notion that he really seemed to just be going on this anti-Jets diatribe here. And that was just like a curious thing. I don't necessarily disagree with him either. I'm not sure what Aaron Rodgers is at this point in his career. He had the back-to-back MVPs. He did not play great last year. He was hurt, but also he hasn't taken the same care of himself that a guy like Brady has. I just don't know what he's going to be like at this point in his career. When Brett Favre went to the Jets, it was not anything special.
Yeah, but he wasn't doing ayahuasca. That's the difference. Brady took care of the physical, and Rodgers is taking care of the spiritual. So it's a really good case study we're going to get here.
Can I say I was so pissed at him that he backed out of the darkness retreat and he didn't stay the whole time?
Oh, he didn't?
He didn't.
How did I miss?
He stayed. He left like halfway through because he was already enlightened or some shit. And then he went on to McAfee saying that he was 90% that he was going to retire before that, and then he came back, and then he was all this other stuff. I have no idea what the Jets are going to be. I think that their defense has a lot of very talented people. I also think that they are not needing to be as tried in a lot of these big games. I think Garrett Wilson's good. I'm not sure how good he is. They have a running back that's coming off a torn ACL. They have a bad offensive line. Like, Rodgers has had really good offensive lines his entire career in Green Bay. I'm not as high on this team as some other people are. You have people in New York saying that it's Super Bowl or bust. I don't even think that they're going to win their division. I think they're going to come in third. So there's a lot of stuff there. I think that the Jets are fine, but I have not hopped on the bandwagon that I think a lot of other people have.
Yeah. See, I'm a little more hot on them. The offensive line is the worry there, of course. But I just, the defense and what they're starting to build, and there's a reason Rodgers wants to go there. And I think that does matter in desire to play somewhere, of course. But, we'll see what it is. I do think it's like they're fighting for second or third place. Yeah. And I think it does depend on Miami and Buffalo. And of course, right, the other top two teams there. But will Allen and Diggs continue to, go off? Or we saw in the offseason, they touched on some stuff. So we'll see if they are still up to par or do they take a step back? Same with the Dolphins. Do they take a step forward or do they take a step back? Tua, what's going on with his head? He's been hit so many times, right? So I don't know. It's a very interesting division, but I do think on paper they are second place. That's my opinion.
I'm really high on the Dolphins this year, and I think that, to your point, and I think the reason that would give me as a Jets fan, I'm not a Jets fan, but if I was a Jets fan, the thing that would give me a belief in this team is that I do think you have a very motivated Aaron Rodgers, and you saw what that did to his career after the Packers got Jordan Love. Even the fact that he took the pay cut after he basically robbed Green Bay for all this money so that they couldn't go out and sign the very same players that he was complaining that they weren't signing. He's talking about retirement. So Devontae Adams doesn't want to stay and they trade him and he chooses Derek Carr over him. He's to blame for so many of these issues when you have guys like Brady taking pay cuts and then you have Rodgers milking every penny that he's worth, right? And then you complain that you don't have a defense. The fact that he's taking a pay cut now, I really think is a screw you to Green Bay and just saying, look, I did not want to take a pay cut for you all, but I'm willing to do it here. And we're going to win and have all this other stuff happen. And as someone who, I'm not even a big Packers fan. I did live in Wisconsin for 4 years, but I am so done with Aaron Rodgers as a person. I think that he may throw the prettiest ball that I've ever seen and has some of the best arm talent in NFL history. And he is probably the biggest douche I've ever seen in the NFL.
What makes you think, did he just want to get out of Wisconsin? He was drafted there and he was there his whole life. And at some point, they were just done. And were they done with the organization? Were they done with the area? They had Rodgers and Devontae and they won Super Bowls and they probably could have done it again. And Devontae walks to go play with his friend, but there's a reason with that because of Rodgers, again, kind of holding out, not taking pay cuts, kind of saying, I want to leave and then staying. And yeah, it just kind of deteriorates. And I wonder if we're going to see the next couple of years, especially when Rodgers eventually retires, maybe we get a 30 for 30, who knows? We get more behind the scenes of what actually went on because it is interesting the way you're putting it. Yeah, he didn't take this pay cut. He gets to New York where he can obviously make way more money with marketing deals and all that stuff. It's a way bigger market, of course. But why did he do it the way he did? So that'll be interesting to see. I'm excited about the Jets. I think they will be fun at the end of the day. And honestly, with Rodgers even coming out, having fun with talking back at Sean Payton saying, don't, keep my coach's name out of my mouth. He's having fun with it. He's leaning into the narrative there of it. And of course, he probably does feel a little back off, right? But, I think it's going to be fun this season. At least it's going to be entertaining, I hope.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that they're going to be much more entertaining to watch than they were with Zach Wilson. And I'm excited to watch some AFC East games this year.
All right. Well, talking about our next story now. In the last couple weeks, things have come to a head with the running backs feeling devalued. Poor little babies and not getting more millions of dollars. But this is it's a position that got the Raiders to be very, very competitive behind Josh Jacobs. He was franchise tagged. Also, they made him play every single preseason game last season. I forget that he had to play and they played the Hall of Fame game. He played all 4 games and then all 18 games or 17 games. Leading rusher, got the Raiders to be competitive in multiple games, and they still don't sign him. And that's just the state of the NFL and the market right now. Running backs aren't valuable once they get older in age, of course. And this has come to a head with Jonathan Taylor and Jim Irsay. Jonathan Taylor asking for a trade from the Colts, saying he wants out, and Irsay saying, this is the market. We're not going to give you a deal. So this all started with Taylor wanting a long-term deal. Irsay saying, no, that's the market. Like, this is, you're getting what you get. Like, why would we overpay? Taylor asked for a trade, and here we are at. So training camp started. He's not there. He still wants to be traded. He doesn't want to play for there. But the report is now that the Colts are considering placing Jonathan Taylor on non-football injury, which can mess up a ton of things for him. So this is a very convoluted and complicated situation here because you have the running back market value there, and that's going down. And that's just a fact. And I think we agree on that. This is what it is, like everything's paying for passing. The running back, your wear and tear, you get older, you're not going to be as productive. It just is what it is, unfortunately. So we'll see what that turns into. But now we have the business side coming to a head here with that. So Jonathan Taylor asked to be traded. His options are right now, because they didn't sign anything. They didn't sign him to a deal. So he either rescinds that trade request and he can play. He can wait for the Colts to blink and they trade him before the season starts or sometime during the season. Or he sits out. He can sit out and try to force that team to trade him. But if he does that, he can lose all his money next year based on if he doesn't play enough weeks or something like that. So this is a really weird situation because I don't know what Jonathan Taylor does. We saw it with Le'Veon Bell. He sat out and didn't do anything after that. His career was over after that point.
The same player.
So, are we going to get the same thing here? And it's I don't know. What do you think? What are you?
Yeah, I mean, I can't blame Jonathan Taylor for wanting to be traded and trying to get money while he can. And frankly, Jonathan Taylor, I think, has a better case than most about wanting to be paid, right? They just invested in a rookie quarterback in Anthony Richardson, right? So you actually do have money to spend. Mm-hmm. This is one of the rare circumstances where I think it actually does make sense to pay a running back because Jonathan Taylor has been your workhorse for a number of seasons. He is the focal point of that offense. And if you're not paying your quarterback and you really don't have any receivers outside of Michael Pittman, right? Like you where else are you spending that money on? You have a lot of money invested. The Colts, I love their GM, Chris Ballard, but he also invests money in like odd places. They pay linebackers a lot. They pay their guards a lot. They don't have premium skill positions on the outside, right? So in this circumstance, I'm on Jonathan Taylor's side. I totally agree with you that the running back position overall is becoming undervalued. It's not like that money is just disappearing. It's just going to other places. A second string tight end now is more valuable than it was before. You need your second string tight end to be able to catch now. Like they can't just be a full blocker. Mm-hmm. Fullback has completely been obliterated. I don't remember really ever hearing fullbacks complain about not having the position. Maybe they did, right? But these things ebb and flow, and we're in a passing league now. It is what it is. And I think what we're going to see is more and more kids shift to wide receiver when they're younger. It's going to make the running back position not have as much awesome talent coming out of college every single year, where you can just find undrafted players, 5th, 6th, 7th round guys that come in and can start and can be valuable pieces for you. So this thing will come to a head at some point. But the biggest issue I have here is obviously with Jim Irsay. He has worked very hard to inherit that team from his dad. And to, just pop pills for the entirety of his time there. I'm not even sure if he knows who Jonathan Taylor is with the amount of Xanax he's been popping. Is that one of the ones that they pop? I'm not sure. I feel like Xanax is more antidepressant, but okay. Regardless of Vicodin, he's on painkillers.
He's on painkillers.
This is okay. This is just to say the notion. First of all, it's funny that he would take painkillers when he's not actually experiencing pain, and then he would lie about Jonathan Taylor experiencing pain. It's just
yeah, because that's another thing too. Is like they want to put him on the non-football injury list because of back pain, and Jonathan Taylor has come out and said that I don't have back pain. I've never reported that. So that's another layer to this that's really weird.
That is the most messed up part of this. That if you want to suspend somebody, or say you can't come, or you are being detrimental to the team, like fine, there's steps you can take there. To tell a player that they're injured, or to tell the rest of the league that this player is injured when they are not, I think is a hugely concerning thing going forward for the amount of power that the owners have. Like, that concerns me way more than the paycheck stuff does. And if they're saying that this injury occurred, this is also the insane thing, that you can be training for football, you can be lifting weights, you can be running with your trainer, you can be doing all of these things, but if it doesn't happen in the Colts or in the team's specific training facility, then they're going to count it as a non-football injury, right? I understand if you're playing basketball. Naheem Himes, I believe, just got into a jet ski accident, and so he was put on the same list, and so the Bills won't have to pay him, although they still might, because the Bills actually care about their players and what people think of them. And that's the whole other thing with, like, Irsay here. If I'm not just a running back, but if I'm any player, why would I ever want to play for Jim Irsay if this is the type of shit that he's going to pull?
Yep. Yeah, and even though, like, he is, like, his comments are right when you take away the context and how he's saying it. Like, yeah, you should. I agree. Like, Jonathan, I get what you're saying with this guy is someone you should pay in this scenario, 100% with a rookie quarterback. But he was on another team, and based on his workload last year, he had his worst year last year, or one of his worst years. Yeah, why would you pay him? So I get that, and he's not wrong with saying the market's gone. Like, we're not going to overpay. Like, doesn't make sense. Yeah. But why are you saying all these things out like the way you're saying it, right? And it's like in the comments too, saying like, well, if I died today and Jonathan was traded, no one would care. Or it's just like, it would be what it is. And it's like, why are you saying stuff like that? Why are you bringing up the fact that if you just died today, no one would care? Like, it just, the way it was handled was super weird. It very much was like, maybe you're getting a little older up there, man. You're kind of starting to sound a little senile, unfortunately, like we see all our Congress people who are up there in age. But age limits of owners in the NFL. But now I'm going back. I agree that why would you want to play for him, right? You might be justified in what you're saying. It might make sense business-wise. But again, when you bring the business in and you start to lose taking care of your players, people who are putting their bodies on the line day after day with concussions and all this stuff, and you're not going to pretend or like at least put out that you care, even in a sense, you're going to put out these comments that show that you just don't really care truly about the players. You're more, you care about the business. That makes sense, but these comments are just out of touch, I think. And I think we'll see in the next couple of years what that will be. I mean, it just depends, we'll see. If they're successful, I think this gets swept under the rug. If they're not, we'll see it, it all depends on Anthony Richard too in that offense. Like if Jonathan Taylor isn't there, and that offense struggles consistently, and Richardson doesn't look good because he just doesn't have it yet. He needs more time. Yeah, it's gonna look bad for Irsay, but I don't know. As of right now, I mean, business makes sense until you get on the field.